We are rolling live. Okay, so we begin a new simon. We finished last week Reish Samaches, which had lots of laws about particularly the end of this simon talked about the laws of the Friday night tefillah in shul. We talked a lot about the bracha mein sheva, the bracha that we make after that the chazan makes after Shemona Esrei is over. Hopefully, by the way, everyone this week during Vayachulu had a new kavana about why do we do this thing in the first place. It's there just in case once or twice a year there's a Shabbat that falls out on Yom Tov, and then you wouldn't say Vayachulu in the Amida, so we want to catch it afterwards, and so because of that, we say it every week. That's really the reason that we do it. So we talked about a lot of these different scenarios. Now we talk about another thing that happens in shul on Friday night, and this is the Reish Samech Tes Din HaKiddush Beveis HaKnesses, the law of the Kiddush in the shul. And what's interesting about this is that it is this does have a source. This practice does go back a ways. It is mentioned in Arvei Psachim, in the 10th chapter of Psachim, when Rav and Shmuel are having an argument about the topic of, until we emerges from the sugya, is whether or not Kiddush has to be done b'makom seuda or not. Do you have to make Kiddush where you're going to eat or not? Which is going to be a topic we're going to get to very shortly in Hilchot Shabbat, which is a fascinating, fun topic. But in that realm, Rav brings up the case, or the Gemara really brings up the case that, if I remember the words correctly, is Osam ben Adam shekidshu bebeis HaKnesses, that those people who make Kiddush in shul, Rav says, Yedei yayin lo yatsu, Yedei Kiddush yatsu. He says that with regards to the Borei Pri Hagafen, if I stay in one place, I'm in shul, and I hear the Borei Pri Hagafen, or I even make the Borei Pri Hagafen, whatever, and then I want to go home and have more wine, I have to make a Borei Pri Hagafen again, because when you move places, your bracha rishona doesn't travel with you, unless you have a kavana. It's a whole, but generally speaking, we don't assume that if, Richie makes a bracha on the cup of coffee right here, he makes a shahakol here, and then he has a whole class, and he's still nursing this coffee, and then he goes home, he might actually need to make a new bracha on it. It's a different halach. Possibly, if he never had any intention, if you're going to take your cup of coffee to go, right? You buy it at a store, you take the first sip in the store, but then of course, yeah. But if he thought he was going to finish his cup of coffee here, then it's very questionable, and it may probably likely that he needs to. Then if he's what's called a shinui makom, he changes location, he now needs to make a new bracha. It's almost like a new situation of eating or drinking in this case, because of the change of location. Again, if there's a kavanah in mind from the beginning that I will be drinking or eating this on the go, that's a very different story. Then that was from the outset how you intended it. It's an interesting topic. Also comes up there in Arvei Psachim.
What is I always have? What if he always has 2 cups a day?
Right.
Says, this is my first cup.
Oh, and I'm going to still have another one. Is there? It depends a little bit also on the time gap. Time does matter here, because if you're not going to have any sips of coffee in another cup of coffee. Yeah, I think that if he has 1 cup of coffee here and then he has another cup of coffee at home, it's another bracha.
Yeah, even if he always has 2 cups.
Yeah. If he
always has 6 or 7 cups.
Oh yeah, that's how you get through the day. Okay. All right. So Simeon.
Rob, we learned previously. I think it's a little further on that Ein Kiddush Ela B'Makom Seuda.
Yes.
The Ein Seuda Ela B'Yeshiva.
Right.
So I never understood. They said it's for guests, but unless the whole shul is davening in a dining room somewhere, it's not B'Makom Seuda.
It is for something.
So we're going to explain this. This is an excellent question and an excellent point that we're going to discuss. And by the way, that last part of that Gemara that I was mentioning before is that Shmuel says that even the Kiddush bracha doesn't count for you. So of course, if the wine bracha doesn't help you to go home and drink wine, and the Kiddush bracha it didn't help you. Now you have to go home and make Kiddush again. That's what the Gemara talks about. So the Gemara's obvious question is, why did you make Kiddush in the first place in shul? And so that's where the Gemara answers, because of the orchim, because of the guests who are passing through town, who presumably were actually staying and eating. Actually, the Gemara even explicitly says, now that I think about it, it says the shosu v'ochlu v'gonu b'bei kanishta. It says they're eating, sleeping, and drinking in the shul. That was where they were. That's where they were residing. While they were passing through town, they happened to be there for Shabbos, so that was their place. And the kiddush was for them. And then you have to go home and make kiddush again for your family. So for Rav, who the kiddush did count, because he thinks kiddush doesn't have to be in the place where you eat. So why do you have to make kiddush again when you go home? Well, he says because the family, they didn't go to shul, so you should make kiddush again for them because they didn't hear the kiddush. So what? Yeah.
Because they used to make kiddush in shul, as they're growing up.
Yeah.
The reason they're making kiddush because there may be somebody in the Gila there who doesn't make kiddush and should have at least hear kiddush.
But they should hear kiddush. That they should be.
My
Look.
grandfather was orphaned. He
Yeah.
actually lived and then he was a crater brat.
Oh, so he lives in the shul.
In the shul.
Right.
They brought him whatever scraps of food they had left over.
Wow.
They brought him whatever clothing they had
Right.
that was outgrown.
So the
And that was
yeah.
the-
So today it's not as common that that a shul is used as such a place where the people who are passing through town or those who are in need and don't have a place, that the shul was a place where they resided. So it's not such a common practice today. I'm acknowledging that maybe not that long ago that was different. I wonder if pre Shoah communities in Europe where this was maybe more common, that people passing through, or there were, as you mentioned, Hinda mentioned, people who didn't have resources to even have a roof over their head. This was a place that they stayed. But today it's become has completely fallen out of practice to usually have people will set them up in a house in the neighborhood or something else. But that was certainly the practice. And this practice, as I mentioned, goes back to the Gemara, that there was already this idea that Orchim stayed in the shul. That's why I brought to give this preamble, because this is not a newer minhag. This is actually quite an old minhag. Again, that goes back to the Talmud. So take a look now at Sif Aleph, which is the only Sif here in this siman, Reish Tamach Tes. Here we go. No hagin lekadesh bebeis haKnesses. There is a minhag to make kiddush in the shul on Friday night. And that's right. And this halacha is mentioned in the Torah. But this is already also mentioned that there's but this minhag, as I say, goes back even before that. The ein lamekadesh lito miyein hakiddush ela matimo lekoton. This kiddush, the mekadesh, the one who's making the kiddush, should not taste from the wine that he makes the kiddush on. Rather, he should give it for the child to taste. Some child should taste it, not the one who makes kiddush. Why shouldn't the one who made kiddush take a sip? That would make more sense. That person makes the bracha should drink a little bit. And he says here, the ein kiddush ela bimkom seuda, because a kiddush only counts. Kiddush only works. You're only yotzei kiddush in the place where you eat your seuda, and you're not eating your seuda here. So for you to take a sip of this wine would be eating, or in this case, drinking, before. It's like drinking before kiddush, because you're not really on Friday night supposed to eat. Or, by the way, or even take a drink of water, really. You're not supposed to taste anything until you make kiddush. Kiddush, after you start Shabbat, should be the first thing you taste, the kiddush wine, or you don't have to drink, by the way, the kiddush wine. It's not the mekadesh, the one making the kiddush can drink, and you can be yotzei through that, but you're not supposed to eat or drink until a kiddush is made. And now here I am tasting some wine in a way where it doesn't even count for kiddush. So this is, since it's Sunday, we'll use a football analogy here. This is a false start. You've started eating and drinking before the play has started, before an eligible kiddush was made. Kiddush has to register as a check mark, kiddush b'makom suda, for me to then go forward with eating and drinking. This kiddush doesn't check the box of kiddush b'makom suda. Therefore, me drinking and tasting the wine is illegal, right? It's against the rules.
So I have two questions.
Yeah.
Number one, you're saying and you're not drinking. And number two, if it doesn't count, And it's a bracha l'mat.
Yes.
Why do it?
Excellent. Oh, we're gonna get to that question. Big time.
That's why you have kid drink.
Right. So at least for the Bar Pia Guffin, you're making now. You'll say someone should ask the question though. Any other time, if I make a Bar Pia Guffin or any bracha, I make a mizonos, I make whatever. I cannot, when I'm at home, make a mizonos on the cookie that my child is going to eat. That doesn't work. It doesn't work like that, Shlomo. It doesn't work like that. I cannot make a mizonos for my kid for my daughter to eat a cookie. But here is a different scenario because whenever you have wine connected to a birchas hamitzvah, so I'll give a few examples. Number one, under a chuppah, the rabbi makes the bracha borei pri hagafen under the chuppah and the bracha for the erusin, and who drinks it? Not the rabbi. The chassan and the kala take a sip. When you're at a bris, I've many times made the bracha on the bar priagafen, and then I'll show you kidash, yidini beten, etc. And who drinks the wine? So I usually end up taking a tiny sip of the wine because you made a bar priagafen, someone has to take a tiny sip. By the way, there's no Indian, there's no idea at all when you're at a wedding or you're at a bris that you have to drink a cheekful. We'll talk about that a lot when we get into the laws of Kiddush, that you have to drink a certain amount. But here you can just take a sip. And then because you can if you eat a crumb, you have to make a bracha rishona first. So you take a sip of wine or grape juice. But there, what happens if the bris falls out on Yom Kippur?
Grandson.
Your grandson was a Yom Kippur bris. So who's drinking the wine? So the Ramah says the baby drinks the wine.
Right.
The little sip, the little tiny sip that the baby made. They dip the thing into the wine, and then you know what? He was Yotzei, apparently through the Bar Pia Guffin, the fascinating halacha. But the baby is the one who drinks the wine. Now they do that anyways, but that's the wine. He's the baby. I mean, he didn't say amen, but he was listening. And he's the one the little 8-day baby is the one who drinks the wine. And so you don't have to, when a Bar Pia Guffin is connected to a Birchas HaMitzvah, anyone who is related to the mitzvah can drink. That's why the chassan and the kala drink. The baby can drink. There are other scenarios where we're talking about birchas hamitzvah. Slipping my mind where we have make a bar pegaf with a birchas hamitzvah attached. But anyway, I already gave you two examples. But the other one might be the pigeon aben is not a good example. No, because also it's not connected. Mitzvah happens and then the wine happens. But basically, here's a Kiddush example. So it's not a crazy idea that a child can taste this wine, and that should suffice, because the child is in the parsha of the idea of Shabbos, and where they are being sanctifying the Shabbos too. Like children have some, not obligation, but they have the idea of Shabbos applies to a child too. So for them to drink a little bit of the wine, not a crazy idea. We're going to see though there's a machlokas here. How old should the child be? So if that's your question, hang on for a second before we get to that discussion. So we're going to get to that question too. Yes, I'm very well aware because often I'm the one who ends up drinking the wine on Friday night here because there's no child, particularly in the summer months. Biz rest Hashem. When the clock is now, the time is moving forward, I'll be able to bring my own children. But this is a big question that I deal with personally. So I'm very invested in this and understanding this Indian very well. Friday night, I'm always drinking the wine. That became the standard here. By the way, we changed the minhag. That one of the rabbis makes the kiddush always, and usually the chazan made it, which is it's fine this way or that way. But this way that way we don't have to deal with it. Sometimes people didn't want to drink the grape juice and that. So I make the kiddush every week.
On Friday, so I passed the cup to Schneider.
Schneider. Oh, a few weeks ago.
No, past Friday.
Oh, because we had a separate minion, right? Oh, so you had him make it.
No kids there.
So you didn't want to make it.
The rabbi makes the kiddush.
Right.
Just grab a kid and bring him down.
Right.
Thinking about that.
Yes. So if you can.
I didn't want to.
Yeah, it's a chop from the bar mitzvah. So look here. He says first of all, by the way, he says v'ayin lekavan siman reisha ayin gimel. I don't even think that's a Ramah. I wonder if that's the printers here who added this in. not this printer, but more ancient printers. That's the whole statement we're going to get to very shortly about Kiddush b'mkom Seuda. And then the whole topic about how far can your Kiddush travel? If I make Kiddush in the main shul, can I then have my food in the social hall? That's an interesting question, and we're going to see. It's a little bit of obviously, we do that here in our shul, but it's not so posh that that's actually the
Like in the neighborhood, when they have these, down like,
on Friday night,
yeah, so the people hosting the minyan, they put out like a spread,
Yeah.
right?
and, the people aren't eating their Suda there.
Right. But that might be eligible for that. We'll see. We're going to see how in this context Seuda is going to be defined, right? So it's
Usually there's no chali available,
right. It's Muslim Mazonos
and they make Kiddush on scotch.
on Friday night.
Yeah.
Oh
That's
no.
before,
They put-
Mincha.
No, after davening, that's not.
Oh no, they should make Kiddush. Shabbos morning Kiddush on alcoholic beverages, not unprecedented. The Taz talks about that, but Friday night it's really you have to have wine. Yeah. Okay.
It always bothered me that they put out food. I never understood why.
Yeah.
I could sell it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So to the extent that you can encourage people to at least make Kiddush on wine, that's better. We'll talk about the other thing, but
Something in established Scarsdale minhag, and I think somebody should say something about it.
It
okay.
doesn't happen in my house.
Doesn't happen in your house. There you go.
I go to, doesn't happen either.
Everybody goes home. Like,
What?
Yeah, but you're spoiling your
Yeah.
house.
Yeah. So we're gonna see. We're gonna learn all about that topic, and we'll draw the lines about what's with the Eved, what's lechatchila, and what's not okay. Okay, so here the Shulchan Aruch continues. Mikara lo niskan ela b'shvil orchim de'achle v'shasei b'beikenish to lahotzia midei chobasim. It's literally, by the way, the Shulchan Aruch here is borrowing the language of the Gemara and Psachim. And the real reason I know is because I've taught Psachim for many years now. This parak. So that's why I can recognize the words here, being that even the fact that they say Beit Kinishta, which is the Aramaic for Beit Knesset.
that means that for people who was saying.
Correct. From Meikar means originally this was only established for the orchim, for the guests who ate and drank in the shul. By the way, and as I said, the Gemara says and slept. Okay, he didn't add that here. Lahotziam yedei chavastam, in order to help fulfill their obligation of Kiddush. The Achshav, and now, okay,
1570.
correct. And now, Afal Gabdalo Achle Orchim Kanishta. Apparently, it was already not such a thing that Orchim were eating in the shul, or maybe not at least with any regularity. Lo Vot Lahatakana. The takana is not nullified. This law, this rule is not nullified. Zehu tam hamekomo shenohagu lekadesh beis haknesses, and this is why to this day, there is a custom to make kiddush in the shul on Friday night. It is because of the orchim, the guests. Now there is something very sweet. I'll say al derech drush. This is not pshat. Al derech drush. There's a very sweet idea here that every Friday night we continue this minhag, which in most shuls in the United States of America, there's nothing to it. Nobody's eating here. And yet we still do it. But there's something sweet that we keep this idea that the community has a responsibility to take care of its guests and to take care of those who need help. And that even though we are not helping anybody per se with that kiddush, that it is a communal reminder of our responsibility towards those who need help, whether they're passing through and they don't have, or they're continuously in need. So that is very sweet. Al derech drush. But look what he says here. Aval yoser tov lahanhig shelo lekadesh beis haknesses. It would be better if they did not make kiddush in shul. V'chein minhag Eretz Yisrael, and this is the minhag in Eretz Yisrael. So the Shulchan Aruch, the Mechaber was already aware, and he does move to Eretz Yisrael later in his life. I don't know if he wrote this when he was in Eretz Yisrael. Maybe he did. I don't know. That the minhag in Eretz Yisrael was not to make kiddush in shul on Friday night.
Excuse me.
Okay.
It's a beautiful shul spot,
Yes.
which is called the Mechaber Shul.
Mechaber shul. Did they make kiddush on Friday night?
I never davened
Okay.
Friday night.
If anybody davens on Friday
I've
night,
never finished Friday night.
In Eretz Yisrael, they don't do it. It's not a thing. It's not a thing in Eretz Yisrael to make Kiddush on Friday night. Yeah, that's my recollection also. Right. What was that? That to not do it. Minhag Eretz Yisrael is not to make the Kiddush. And the Ramah adds in here, and this is fascinating. Once we get to the reasoning, the minhag is to stand when they make Kiddush in shul. Okay, we're going to talk about why in a moment. Why is fascinating. It will put all physical therapists out of business. You'll love it. Okay, Shimi, I saw your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, Rav, you mentioned that he was in Israel. We're reading from the Shulchan Aruch, and that was Rav Yosef Karo in the early 1500s.
Yeah.
I wasn't aware that he went to Israel. Is that what we're talking about?
Towards the end of his life, he lived in Sfat. He lived in Sfat.
There's a beautiful shul in Sfat.
Yeah, Richie was just saying there's a shul called there, the Mechaber shul, in Sfat.
What did you say? Richie's going to take us all there?
Oh yeah, Richie's sponsoring the trip.
Let's go.
We'll do our shir.
One way.
We'll do one way, and we'll do our shir every Sunday morning in the Mechaber shul.
Okay.
That's right.
Where did he come?
He was living in Egypt. Yeah, he was living in Egypt. So he's. I think so, wasn't he?
The Rambam, yeah.
Well, the Rambam certainly was. Hold on, let me. I don't want to. I'm making me worried. I said the wrong thing. Or maybe it's Spain. No, he was in Spain. Sorry.
But
Sorry.
I thought he was also in Egypt.
Let's see here. Rabbi Yitzchak. Sorry, Yosef Karo.
He was kicked out of Spain in 1492, but somehow he got back here.
Rabbi Yosef Karo. Okay, yeah.
Oh, no, I was talking about the Rambam. Sorry.
He was born in Toledo, right, in Spain.
What year?
Hold on. It was 1488. He died in 1575. Let's see here. He ended up, right? He passed away ultimately in Tzfat. He's buried. Yeah, he's buried in the old Jewish cemetery in Tzfat. If anybody ever goes to Tzfat and you're going to a cemetery, I can't go, but you go. You could go visit the Mechaber's Kever. Right. At age 4, he was expelled from Spain with his family in 1492 because he was born in 1488, and he settled in Portugal. Right, and then in 1497, there was expulsion from Portugal, so he went with his parents to Morocco. Okay, and then from 1520 to 1520, he went to Adrianople, and then later in 1535 he arrives in Tzfat. By route, by passing through Salonika and Istanbul. So he made a lot of stops. And it says here that I was wrong. He completed the Shulchan Aruch when he was in Tzfat.
Yeah.
So there you go. So I stand corrected. So I guess he was already very well that there was no minhag in Eretz Yisrael. He remembers his minhag when he grew up, and he sees that the minhag in Eretz Yisrael is not to make Kiddush anymore. Yeah.
The Chevra there were all famous.
Right, the Mekubalim,
Mekubalim.
yeah.
The Ari was there, Rav Moshe Nuso.
Right. There is a side point that one of the origin stories of the minhag to stay up on Shavuos night is the story about the Ari and Rav Yosef Karo had a chavrusa together. I think the Ari writes about this, and suddenly the Mechaber started having like a heavenly voice emerging from his. No, this is a story as retold, I think, by the Ari, and one of the things that they were talking about was that it said was that they should learn all night, on Shavuos night. So that's one of the origin stories. The other origin story people say is because in the advent of coffee. It could be that there was the merging of those two that made it popular, but the Mechaber was a Mekubal himself. People like to think of him as a halachist, but he was also very into Kabbalah.
I mean, I can't rattle off the names of all the famous.
Shlomo Alka, probably the Chadoti. These are all.
They're all there, and the minute that Rav Yosef Karo stepped into Tzfat, they named him the chief rabbi.
Right. He was Maran. Right, he was our master. He based it all off of the tour, the work of the tour, which was written by the son of the Rosh, Rav Yaakov ben Asher, and he the system of the Simanim comes from the tour. The Mechaber used the same system, and he would take what the Tur did, and he boiled it down to here's what you should do. That's how he wrote the Shulchan. And he wrote it. He based the system on the Torah.
It up from
He then picked up from all the sources. If you ever read his work before this called the Beis Yosef, which is an expansive work, he was very well learned. He learned every Gemara. He learned every Rishon. He knew every Rishon, and he would quote them. The Ramban says this, and the Rambam says that, and he would say, the majority here say this, so I'm going to follow this. But he was obviously a world-class scholar. The fact that he could, again, he didn't. Nowadays we have everything at the tip of our fingers on a device. He wasn't holding with devices. He was holding it up in his cup. They had manuscripts. It was not like he would have to remember things. And the
Rambam was criticized, but mostly by the Rabbit, but
yes, for sure,
for not annotating his.
Correct.
Side.
He didn't say, where did you get it from?
Right.
Correct.
He didn't annotate it, so
Joseph
took it upon himself. He wrote a book called the Kesef Mishnah.
Right, on the
where he
Rambam,
annotates
where he gave the sources for the Rambam.
The sources for the Rambam.
Correct. He was right. On any standard printing of the Rambam today, on the side, there's the Magid Mishnah, and there's also the Kesef Mishnah. The Kesef Mishnah was also written by Rabbi Yosef Karo. He went through the entire work of the Rambam, and he basically and he cited the sources for the Rambam. He did Rambam's homework. And then
that would take several lifetimes.
Correct. And then he wrote his own work on the Torah called the Beis Yosef, and then he decided people need something to work with, like a
set table.
A set table, and so I'm going to write the Shulchan Aruch, and that way you don't have to be the world-class Torah scholar to say, okay, what do I do? So that's what we learned. Anyways, take a look now at the Mishnah Berurah. Speaking of other,
is really truly one of these amazing.
Correct. He's in the annals of Jewish history, he goes down as one of the greatest.
But Tur is can you explain about
The Tur was again, he was a son of the Rush. He had an interesting life because he started out in Germany. Okay, so he was very well aware of a lot of the Ashkenazi customs, but he and his father,
His father was the Rush.
His father was the Rush, he was like the chief, thinker, the chief thinker amongst the Ashkenazim living in Germany. What happened? The Jews got chased out. The Ashkenazi Jews got chased out of Germany, France, that area. They were chased out, and the Rush. There was pogroms essentially, and the Rush.
Mayor of
Mayor of Württemberg. He was the Rebbe of the Rush. He got thrown in jail. And he never made it out.
So
That's right.
So Rabbi Meir was held for ransom by the Kaiser.
Right, and he insisted that no one should ever.
Right, but the Rush, before he did that, the Rush did raise the money.
But the Maharam.
The Rush was a very wealthy man.
Right.
And he exposed his wealth to the Kaiser.
Right, so he's on the run.
Then they say, you better get out of this country because they know you have this kind of money, they're going to arrest you too.
So he was on the run. He left and he went to Spain. And the reason that a lot of Ashkenazi minhagim started popping up in Spain is because the Rush had brought them. And everybody, when the Rush arrived on the scene, he didn't assert himself, but he was not. They realized that the Talmid Chacham of the highest order had just flopped down in their lap. His son was actually very much not wealthy. He was actually Rabbi Yaakov was not wealthy.
They had to leave their wealth in Germany.
They left all their wealth, so he was very poor. And he was well learned, and he decided he wanted to take all the different opinions. He was very well aware now of all this, the great opinions of the Ramban and the Rashba, who were living in Sephardic lands in Spain. And he starts to collate different opinions and put them together. But he never paskin. He doesn't tell you, here's the psak halacha. He has a lot of reverence for his father. He writes often, Adoni Avi Harash. He would do this. But he also gave you what the Ramban would do, and what the Rambam would do, and what the Rashba would do. So he was starting to collect different piskei halacha, and he put it together. And then the Mechaber took that, and he started giving you more depth about each opinion. And then he wrote his own work, where he basically said, "Here's what we do." And he would give you what his psak halacha was, and he would give you what the minhag was. The Rama didn't know that apparently this guy, Rav Yosef Karo, he was living in Poland, and he didn't know that this other guy was doing what he was doing. Rav Moshe Isserles was doing the same project. And then he writes in his introduction that the world shook when news arrived that someone had finished this before he finished his project. So he took the Mechaber's work and he wrote some Ashkenazi glosses on it, like, our custom here in Poland is blah, blah, blah. So anyways, as a happy tangent, but that's sort of what a little bit of the history here about Mechaber.
Because the Rush was kicked out of Germany and it came to Spain, it took the Ashkenaz and the Sephardi. They took them and melded
They
them.
melded them exactly in some places, and there was sometimes the Rush he would write a certain. It was interesting. Minhagim once I read a tshuva the Rush wrote about by Saint Talmata, the addition in the bracha of Barech Aleinu. He noticed that in Spain that they were holding like the minhag of Eretz Yisrael. They're the one to make the switch, I think, something like that, or I can't remember. He there was something he didn't like that he tried to sort of. There was some memory that he was trying to deal with this. There was a tension in the sense that he also wanted to have reverence for them, but they also saw him as a big gadol. So he started, that's why there are some Saradim who have, certain, depends where they come from, have sometimes been Hagim that line with Ashkenazim. Okay, you'll think of Kitnios, by the way. By the way, it's not inconsequential that some people who come from Spanish descent. I once heard Rabbi Sarah was talking about this in our school, and he came to talk to kids about the Sephardic Minhagim and Pesach. I think he said something to the effect of that those who were influenced by the Rush in Spain, they did have the minhag not to eat kitniot, even though they were Saradi. But certain Saradim from different areas, they never heard from the Rush. Some Moroccans, depends where, but some Moroccans
came from there, I guess.
And it may have come from there. So because that came from the Ashkenazim had stopped eating the kitnios. Anyways, so we spread our wonderful minhag of not eating rice to some Saradim too. And peas and everything, and we restricted. And you could have your matzah and cream cheese the whole time. Yeah,
I think your tangential side trip is absolutely wonderful. It's scholarly, it's specific, and it brings tremendous amount to the table. I just wanted to tell you, Yasher Koach, I love it.
You're welcome. Okay, I'm happy that we did it then. Okay, good. So let's take a look now at the Mishnah Berurah. Mat'imo lekatan. Remember, we were supposed to give this little wine to a katan, ideally. That's Kiddush and Shul. So here comes a machlokas. So the first opinion is that you should give it to a small katan, a 3-year-old, a 4-year-old who doesn't understand the first thing about halach. But, if a kid is 9, 10, 11 years old, and you're trying to teach them that on Friday night we don't eat until we make Kiddush at home, or wherever we're eating our meal. And it's actually kind of hypocritical to then start giving them the Kiddush wine, and you're teaching them, well, it's okay until I tell you it's fine. It's not okay until I tell you it's okay. And that's really confusing from an educational perspective. So that's the first opinion here, which I kind of hear. But aval, and by the way, you're not supposed to feed your children things that are prohibited. Even in midrabanan, I shouldn't give them certainly got kosher food, but if they're not supposed to be eating right now for halachic reasons, you shouldn't be feeding them. Obviously, fast days like Yom Kippur, they have no obligation to, right? That's a different story. But so that's opinion number one. Aval Hamagin Avram Kosla b'Shem HaPoskim. The Magin Avram quotes the name of many other poskim. The mutter. It's permissible even to give it to a katan who has arrived at the age of education. So he actually tells you, kind of kvar sheath, the kvar sheva, 6, 7 years old. Kol chad lefum churfe. Everyone according to their sharpness. Every kid, you got to measure the kids. Meaning you should aware. Can they understand the halacha? If they can understand and grasp what it means, then you should try to teach them halacha. The Gemara talks about that once they know how to say, Torah Tzivilanu Moshe, Morasha Kehilas Yaakov, you should teach them, that the Torah came from Moshe. That's why that's one of the first, that comes from the Gemara. One of the first songs we teach kids is Torah, Torah, Torah. That comes from the Gemara. Because that you should teach kids that the Torah the Torah was given to Moshe, was given by God to Moshe. You try to start to instill them the most basic fact. Torah, Hashem gave it to Moshe. But the Gemara gives an example. It's a Masechah Sukkah that the kid is able to wear tzitzis and keep it clean and understand. They don't have to understand. They don't understand why they're doing it. They need to understand procedurally how to do things. Then they should start training them procedurally on certain things. So if they know how to, so again, the Gemara example is tzitzis. Lulav. Lulav is where it comes up. If they know how to shake, so you should give them the lulav and esrog, and you hold it with them and you shake it in all the directions. Same thing, here. If the kid understands can understand the idea of not drinking right now, right? And there's some basic level of that knowledge. So you should not be giving them. According to the first opinion, the second opinion says no, it's fine too, not a problem. The other rabbi, in fact, the second opinion goes further. On the contrary, if you give it only to a katan who has not arrived at the age of education, yeah, birkas hamavarach levatala. Then it's a bracha levatala. The little 3-year-old saying amen to my bracha. The 3-year-old is looking around, holding their little stuffed animal in their hand. They'll only pay attention to me once I give them the grape juice. They're not listening to the bracha. So the person who even drank is not even paying attention. And you could even make the same claim, though, by the way, about the case about Yom Kippur. When I told you on Yom Kippur, the halacha is that you give the wine to the baby. Because I'm joking before the baby was listening carefully. Obviously, that's not the baby can't understand a thing about this. So he says here, because if a child is 2-3 years old, they haven't really been trained on how to make a bracha, or how to say amen, or how to listen, or that a bracha is anything relevant in their lives. So it's a bracha levatala, perhaps. And even according to what it says later towards the end of Hilchot Shabbat, that in general you're not allowed to feed a child something that is prohibited. To proactively give them something that is prohibited. Even if things are prohibited midrabanan. They comment on him. He says here we're allowing it for a few different reasons. It's a minhag. We don't just easily get rid of takanos, So because it's not, less than ideal halachic circumstances, so we allow it here. We make an exception here. Generally, we don't like to give things to kids when we otherwise say don't do something. In giving it to a kid, we don't like to do that. And I guess also to the extent that you could explain to the child why this is an exception, so that they understand, right? That you're drinking right now because of this, but otherwise we don't do it. It's probably good chinuch, given that you have to give it to them. This is. I hope I don't offend anybody now, or at least but that's the best case scenario to educate everybody. You're not supposed to on the Shabbos morning. You're allowed to give kids to eat on Shabbos in the morning before Kiddush, because it's prohibited to cause them pain. Also, like they have to have an inoy, like affliction, like a fast day. For a kid not to have breakfast is not easy. For adults, you generally not on a regular day. You're not supposed to eat before you daven. You should daven first, then coffee before coffee, tea. Okay. So you should daven first. So there's a problem though, that once after you've davened Shachris on Shabbos morning, at least I'm taking the words right out of the Shulchan Aruch. I'm not making this up. You're not allowed to eat or drink, even drink of water, after you've davened Shachris. So you shouldn't even have coffee and tea after you've davened Shachris. You haven't made Kiddush yet. You davened Shachris. You haven't made Kiddush yet, though. You really are not supposed to taste anything, even water. Which is why I believe Kiddush clubs started. Okay, because what happens? Shachris is over. So the Kiddush clubs, whoever originally started Kiddush clubs, in the days of the Gemara, they were Talmidei Chachamim. They understood that you're not allowed to even have anything after Shachris. But I don't know about all of you. I grew up in a shul. When I was a kid, davening started at 9, and I feel like it ended at 12. That was not atypical. Now, if it ends at 12, they're starting to think about, I'm not sure about this rabbi. He allows the davening to go 3 hours. Come on, rabbi, move it along. Okay, we're moving. But in my childhood, I remember davening ended typically around 12. It was a long tefillah. Am I crazy? It probably was here too, right?
When I was a kid, for sure.
Yeah, and that's what I remember. And there was a Misha Berach for this and a Misha Berach for that. The rabbi's drasha, and I'm not saying this is not a criticism, by the way. The rabbi's drasha was sometimes 40 minutes. It was just a different standard. I think if I'm not mistaken, I remember
Before ADD.
for sure, before all his devices happened. Yeah, And I feel like I remember like Rabbi Haskell Lookstein talking even when I was in Smicha that the length of his drushes were long, and people hear but that was very typical of standard. What was that?
Joe was his father.
Right, correct. And he would talk about how his father would the length of as I would read I'll read a drasha from the Rabbi Lam Zechron Livrocha gave at the Jewish Center, and I'm turning the pages and it's a beautiful thought. But I'm like, wow, this must have been a 40-minute presentation. So shul was longer, okay, for whatever reason. So the question is, I have a child now, and the child is. So we're not going to make the child wait until whatever, but even the adults couldn't wait. So probably the origins of Kiddush Club. When is Kiddush Club usually? The minhag Yisrael of what the timing of Kiddush Club is? Haftorah. Why? Because Shachris is over. They didn't want to step out during the laning. The laning is, that's the parasha of the week. So the time that was advantageous to probably step out is Haftorah. And okay, so I'm missing what the Navi says. Who knows a Navi? Anyways, I'm gonna get myself in trouble. The Navi. So that's how I'm tongue in cheek saying this, but I think actually it did originate with some halachic sensibility that I can't do it before Shachris at some point. And now we have to, in order to eat, I have to make a kiddush. And so, anyways, they didn't, and davening was long. There are many shuls. Now I'm not even saying things funny, it's jokes. There are many shuls on Rosh Hashanah that before Tikiyah Shofar, after Shachris is over, and they've finished laning and they finished the Haftorah, the shul pauses and they have a break and they make kiddush that everyone can eat because davening is long. And it's a question whether you can really be fasting for such a long time. And they have a little kiddush. They make kiddush. They have crackers and whatever other stuff. Everyone comes back in the shul and they begin Seder Tikiyah Shofar. But I'm not even thinking. I don't think it's just the Hasidim. There are many shuls, usually more like shtibels, that have longer tefillah that do this because they don't want to be fasting all the way until 2:00 in the afternoon. Because halachically, it's problematic to be not eating, never eaten past chatzos. So that's where here he's talking about that let's get it all off our chest. I got mine off my chest today. I'm just kidding. Kiddush Club has it's fine.
Take a bottle of water.
Yes, I will tell you. Rabbi. So I will tell you that my Rebbe, Rabbi Weider, he's an expert Bal Koreh. I don't know if you ever listen. If you go to Wayu Torah, he's the laning guy. Okay, so he teaches a lot of bar mitzvah boys. So he always told us that he would always tell the bar mitzvah boy when Shachris was finished, he would actually take a little, those little grape juice bottles. He always say, bring a little grape juice bottle, step out quickly right after Shachris before Torah reading, and he would tell the kid, make kiddush. And he'd make kiddush, and he would drink, cheeks full, which we'll talk about in a second. If you drink a significant amount of the grape juice, that's good. And now he has kiddush b'malkom seuda. Now, once you've made kiddush, you can drink other things. And it was Shachris is over. You can drink things before Musaf if you've made kiddush after Shachris. If you haven't made kiddush after Shachris, you can't do anything. So he always suggested make kiddush quietly on the side. You don't have to make a big deal about it. Make kiddush quietly on the side. But if you drink enough of the grape juice, that is the significance. We'll talk about that in a moment. Then that's good enough. And now you want to drink your water, not a problem. You want to take a break between the aliyah to take a sip. It doesn't present a halachic problem. So really, that's really what should happen if people are having the bottles of water. They should make kiddush quietly, privately to themselves first before they do that, and then you can drink water and there's no problem. But otherwise, it does say that the Shulchan Aruch does say you shouldn't have water. You could try to be malamed by saying, well, they're just clearing their throat. It's like taking a pill. But I personally don't love that svara because.
So what if they make kiddush? They make kiddush in their house for that again?
If their family needs it, they themselves may not need to, and then they can go to kiddush and start eating the crackers. Yeah. That we'll talk about that. That's the topic that we're gonna have a lot of time in the next few weeks on.
Deal with this Mizono kiddush here.
So look, the idea that there's coffee is not controversial. Rav Moshe already said that coffee, before Shabbos is okay, and coffee and tea. It is a Hasidic minhag, okay? And maybe you can recall. No, I'm saying, but maybe you've seen it, when you were in different communities. I don't know, but it's a Hasidic minhag to eat on Shabbos morning because otherwise you have no kavana. It's so late already that they're worried you have no kavana. Look, I'm like more like in the Litvak tradition. That's where my ancestry is. So I'm a Shulchan Aruch kind of guy, I don't drink coffee in the first place. But if I did, I'd be okay drinking coffee. But I don't engage in it. But there's a Hasidic minhag, so it doesn't come from nowhere, and that's where the idea of the Mizainis Kiddush, the Hasidim, some Hasidim did this because otherwise it's very late, and then they can't concentrate and focus on their tefillah without having eaten a little bit. But the idea is that Rabbi Morgenstern was very cautious to say that it should be taken away at a certain point. Once Shacharis is over, it's out because less man de pali. There's no argument that once you've done Shacharis, even you can't have coffee at that point until you make Kiddush. Or water, exactly. So there's nothing, all that stuff needs to be put away.
So two things, the kiddush we have in the shul before we go.
Yeah.
Is that?
The one in the shul, the main
Right,
shul.
right.
Yes, that's
supposed to be
considered the
like,
Kiddush b'makom seuda, and it's a justifiable minhag that even though it's not in the same room. There are those who are makbid to make the Kiddush in the very same room, and if you learn the Gemara in Reb Sachem, you understand why. You understand why that lechatchila it's certainly better to make the Kiddush in the actual room. The practical problem is though that if you move everybody in the shul to the other room, good luck getting everyone quiet again. And the fear is that people won't make a Kiddush, and then they're just going to start eating. So halachically, the calculation is here better to make the Kiddush with the idea of that we're going to move to a different room to fulfill the Seudah, than not make the Kiddush and then hope that we, by the way, it happens on Sukkot. What happens on Sukkot whenever you have to make the Kiddush in the Sukkah, nobody makes Kiddush. Right? The rabbi doesn't make Kiddush. I don't make Kiddush, or if we do, we in the corner of the Sukkah, 15 people are listening. Otherwise, hopefully everyone else is making Kiddush, but I'm not, nobody's doing a citizen's check here,
We need Kiddush,
You
please.
can drink coffee in the morning before you come to shul.
On any day, the Shulchan Aruch doesn't say anything, but Rav Moshe already paskin that the coffee and tea is like drinking water. Water you can have in the morning before you get to shul. So if you're drinking water, but once you daven Shabbos, you can't do that. Yeah.
The Kiddush on Shabbos morning.
Yeah.
It should just say bracha on whatever you eat.
It's more paragraph in here.
It's not really like a Friday night you make up the Kiddush.
It can be very quick.
Yeah.
Correct. It doesn't have to be a whole long procedure. That's why I'm saying that if the bar mitzvah boy needs to drink or something like that or whatever, you step out and you make a little quick Kiddush and then he goes back in and he can drink his water also. And again, I was making jokes about Kiddush before. I apologize to those who engage in Kiddush, but I apologize. But the idea is that, you're making a quick Kiddush, right? You're taking a little nash and you go back and technically there's no problem with that at all. And then in fact, if it helps your kavanah from musaf, that you were able to have a little bit of herring inside of you or a little cracker, it's really not a problem. I think that is why, again, I wasn't trying to joke before, but that is why Kiddush Club, I think, universally became around Haftorah because it was the advantageous time to chop a little bit of food and drink before Musaf. And that way you have more, you're not like starving. Again, when shul used to be until 12 o'clock, I have a little sympathy, like it's a long day. I don't know. For me, by the time I get to midday, I don't know, I'm hungry. So I don't know about you. So take a look. Let's continue here. The Mishnah Berurah, he says, sorry, I read that line about the kids eating in the morning, right? That it's usher to not give them food in the morning, right? So that's why we have food here for the kids, during groups. We're not making them fast until after shul's over. So now what happens? This was your question, Tommy. There's no kid in shul. It's Friday night. There's nobody there under the age of, forget Higiel Chinuch, Lo Higiel Chinuch. There's not a 3-year-old there. There's not a 5-year-old there. There's not a 10-year-old there. I got nobody. So Azba Yishtek Kashir Revius. So then the person who makes the Kiddush should actually drink a whole Revius. Meaning, so if I ever do this, what I do is I don't take a sip. But the other kids, they take a sip, they take a whatever. Okay. they weren't being, whether they were being Yotzei, they don't need to drink. When you want to be Yotzei, the mitzvah of the Kiddush, you should drink a shear, or, you're having a significant amount because that's how you fulfill Kiddush is by drinking, fine. But here, so I have to drink a revius. I drink, it's about a cheeks full. Because that creates the framework of Bimkom Suda. Because wine, anything that would require a bracha achas me'ein shalosh, usually it's mizonos. We say ala michya. There are two other cases. What else can we say? Bracha achas me'ein shalosh. Bar priagafen, when we drink enough wine, or certain fruits that are exactly the fruits of Eretz Yisrael. So you can name them: pomegranate, figs, dates, grapes, and olives. Right. But see that barley and wheat is going to get you alamichya category, anyways. So if you have enough wine, a shear of wine, that's already considered b'mkom suda. Which, by the way, Richie, to the Friday night minhagim you're saying around town, that will justify it at the very least. Why it's, I'm not saying it's ideal, but at least it's permissible.
Right.
If A, drink wine as the Kiddush, but B, if they put out mazonos, at least as Kiddush b'mkom seuda. If they're only putting out, I don't know, some shahakal foods, like some meat to pick from, that's actually not a good, you could have it there, but it's not good because you need something that will trigger the bracha achas me'ein shalosh for everybody. Not just the one who made the Kiddush. Now, if everybody is being yotzei through that Kiddush, everyone needs to have a cracker or something like that at some point, or a piece of cake. Anywho.
And then make the bracha.
Right. So again, that may not be ideal though, because it's better to come into your bigger seuda with an appetite. But that's
there are inyanim that I've looked up.
Not to have that.
There is a connection between the wine and the challah.
100%. That's why I'm not saying I could justify, that happened. But as I said, it may not be lechatchila for sure.
Right.
Now, take a look. He says here, what time? I don't want to run too long for you guys. Okay. He says here, that's the siman about Kiddush Baruch Hu. You're Yotze this way. The person who does this, who drinks the revius, should make a bracha achron al gefen v'al priya gefen. And then v'yachshov v'dato lotzes Kiddush b'zeh. And I have in mind to be Yotze the mitzvah of Kiddush. And it was Kiddush b'mkom seuda. So again, I didn't have challah, but I still go have a meal. But okay, at least I'm Yotze Kiddush. But mikol makom,
the revius of the grape juice.
That's right. Now at least I have Kiddush b'makom seuda, so I'm Yotze Kiddush.
Yeah.
Now mikol makom yachol achar kach lachzor l'kadesh b'beso. I go home and make Kiddush. My wife didn't hear Kiddush. My kids didn't hear Kiddush. Right, the hotzi b'nei beso, in order to fulfill the mitzvah of Kiddush for members of the household.
Yeah.
What was that?
Could you ask your wife to make Kiddush?
My wife could make Kiddush 100%. It is in the Gemara that women can be motzi men. This is not me being making new halachos here. It's Gemara, I think it's Daf Chof in Brachos, that women, I think it's Daf Chof, can be motzi men. Why? Because just like you say, but it's a positive mitzvah that's time bound. Kiddush is only once a week on a Friday night. But the Gemara says that since women are obligated in the shamor, in the negative aspects, and therefore they are also equally obligated in the zachor, because zachor v'shamor b'dibur echad nem. Right? They were stated together by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and therefore women are equally obligated. And it says that nashim can be motzi men. Okay, but that's not typically what happens. But so certainly, my wife can make Kiddush on her. I could just stand there. I make Kiddush. She can make it on her own. Yeah.
The argument that the woman should make Kiddush.
There is what to say. Yes.
You've already made Kiddush. You're already Yotzei. So now her level of obligation is higher than yours because she has not heard Kiddush yet, and you have already made Kiddush.
Right.
Yeah, but he can make.
But you can always make as long as the original obligation level was the same. You can always help out. Where this becomes tricky, or I've done this on.
But if you've already made Kiddush, right?
Yeah, no,
And then you
I've
go
discharged my
You
obligation.
discharge your obligation, but your wife has not.
Right.
Therefore, her level of obligation is arguably higher than yours.
Sure, right. But when it comes to the cholesterol or ravens, which is what allows me to make a bracha for other people, then fulfill your mitzvah, it allows me to do so even though I fulfilled my mitzvah. But we had to have started with the same level of mitzvah. An example that's going to come up in a few weeks, always happens every year. On Rosh Hashanah, women do not have an obligation to hear Tekiah Shofar. It is about positive time by mitzvah. They are potter. If they would like to engage in the mitzvah and fulfill the mitzvah, they get absolute full credit for it. But if they don't want to, there's no. I missed the positive mitzvah. They're potter. They're exempt.
From hearing the shofar.
Yes. So therefore, when the bracha is made in the shul, I'm scheduled to blow in the JCC one day this year. So when I make the bracha at the beginning of shofar, I make it. I have everybody in mind. I blow. I'm done. I did my mitzvah of shofar. If I then come home, so there have been years when my wife could not make it to shul because we have little children and this and that and whatever. And I would blow shofar for my wife at home. So I would insist that she made the bracha, not me. Because I cannot make a bracha for somebody else who has a different level of obligation to start with. She has an obligation. Better yet, she is not obligated. Therefore, and if we were Sfaradi, she wouldn't even make the bracha. Because Sfaradi women, if they want to, let's say, eat in the sukkah on Sukkot, they don't make a leishe basukah. They don't make al tzilas lulav because they don't make a bracha on mitzvahs that they're not obligated in. That they're because it's a mitzvah that says Shazman Grama. They can do the mitzvah and get the credit, but the psak for Sfaradim is that they don't make the bracha. The Rabbeinu Tam says Ashkenazi women can make the bracha. So if they want to shake lulav and esrog, they want to do any mitzvah that's time bound, they can make the bracha. So if I come home and my wife has not heard the shofar, I will tell her she should make the bracha, and then I'll blow. But that's
She doesn't.
that's in terms of arvus, it only works. Arvus can work, so I can come home and make kiddush again for my wife. And it's an interesting question, though. If let's say whatever happens, my wife is away for Shabbos, I don't know, and it's me and just the kids, and I did this in shul, and I actually don't think I can make kiddush again at home. I'd probably insist that one of my children made their kiddush because they don't have any obligation, to make kiddush. They're minors. And therefore, for me to make kiddush, I could say bar pregafen again. That's not a problem. And I can always make a bar pregafen. But to say the other bracha, I would just say Hashem Elokeinu and not actually make the bracha, but because I'm already yotze. I cannot discharge them of anything, and therefore to make a bracha will be bracha levatala. So something to keep in mind. Yeah. That's why I would almost say that I would insist that I have a child who's already 9, but he should say the bracha. Let him cut his teeth on the bracha. It's a good opportunity to learn the words. But I don't think I could make it. Again, maybe I would do it by saying Hashem Elokeinu, but I don't think you can. I don't think you can do it with Hashem's name. Okay, so he says here, continuing on, V'yivarech achar kach bracha acharona. Then you should. Okay, I read that. Okay, B'kol makom yachol achar kach lachol l'kadosh b'nei. Okay, good. Okay, I finished. I read that. Okay, Siv katan beis. Then we'll just finish after this. De'en kiddush v'chulei. Hainu de'en hamikadosh yotze b'kiddush zeh kevan she'eno b'mkom seudasa. Again, if you're just tasting, right? That's why you can't just taste because this is not kiddush b'mkom seuda. That's why the Mishnah Berurah just explained before. If you are the only one there, you need to drink a significant amount in order for this to count as a seuda, register as a halachic seuda. This is always confusing when I taught this to students in 8th grade because they think a seuda means like a big meal, and seuda is a very technical term in halacha, right? It's the divorce. What you think of as a seuda on a colloquial manner, just speaking, versus a halachic seuda. And we're going to spend a lot of time on defining halachic seuda in a few simanim. So he says, so that's why you're not supposed to taste anything until you're actually having your meal, seuda, and you're making the kiddush in the b'mkom seuda. Okay, this is going to take us a little more time. Halacha. So I'll stop here. There's a fascinating halacha. I'll leave you with this question. Really, the Shulchan Aruch earlier in Shulchan Aruch and Kuf Nun Aleph in Arach Chaim says that a person is not, people should not eat in the shul. So how do you have people who are eating in shul, who are eating and sleep, drinking and whatever in the shul? Now, also their shuls may not have looked like our shuls. Our shuls have social halls, classrooms. There are shuls that were magnificent structures in Europe. I'm sure maybe some of you have toured them. But the idea that most shuls were like that is not the reality. Most were more akin to shtiblach, and the one room. So the fact that people were eating in the shul is highly questionable halachically. It kind of drives me a little bit nuts that on Shabbos kids kind of run roughshod in the main shul for cleanliness reasons too, but halachically they shouldn't be eating in the shul. They should be, and maybe it's one thing if it's a lollipop, but that they're bringing cholent in there and they're bringing this in there. The parents will need to keep the food out of the shul for multiple reasons. Cleanliness, certainly, but anyway. So the question is, how could it be that people were eating in the shul? In the days when they were orchim were there. So we'll talk about that. It's an interesting discussion, and then we'll finish this up next time. We didn't get to why they stand. So we'll see. It's actually fascinating from the Kolbo why it's a minhag to stand. If you're not being yotze the kiddush, I'm just listening to this kiddush that the rabbi is making. Okay, but the kehila has to stand because I'll give away only one thing. He says here, it helps for the tiredness of your knees. You should stand during that kiddush. It helps. You're having knee problems. Come to shul on Friday night and listen to the kiddush.
I know what he's talking.
Right? So on Friday night, make sure you stand. The Kolbo had this reason. It's good for your knees. It's good. It helps your knees. If you stand at kiddush on Friday night in the shul, it's good for your knees. We'll talk about more why next week. But just know that if you're having anyone down there, Simeon in Florida or here, their knees, their knee joints are hurting. Tell them to come to shul on Friday night. Stand during the kiddush.
Okay,
Yes.
Rav,